الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين بارئ الخلائق أجمعين فاطر السماوات والأرضين والصلاة والسلام على سيدنا ونبينا ومولى الكونين وجد الحسنين والتارك فينا الثقلين النبي المؤيد والرسول المسدد المصطفى الأمجد أبي القاسم محمد اللهم صل على محمد وعلى محمد وعلى أهل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين المعصومين الذين أذهب الله عنهم الرجس وطهرهم تطهيرا اللهم صل على محمد وعلى محمد ورحمة الله على محبيهم ومواليهم وشيعتهم أجمعين ولعنة الله على أعدائهم أعداء الله من يوم عداوتهم إلى قيام يوم الدين أما بعد فقد قال الله عز وجل في كتابه المجيد بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم ربنا إني أسكنت من ذريتي بواد غير ذي زرع عند بيتك المحرم ربنا ليقيموا الصلاة فاجعل أفئدة من الناس تهوي إليهم صدق الله العلي العظيم صلوا على محمد وآل محمد اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. For the love of Amir al-Mu'mineen, another loud salawat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. We gather here today on this joyous occasion where the hearts of every mu'min are in joy, are in the state of farha and musarrah, because that individual, when the Holy Prophet was born, there was no doubt joy in those who were waiting for him. But then Rasulullah was also waiting for somebody. And that somebody did not emerge until 30 years later. He had a 30 years wait for his brother to come. Like Musa had Harun, the Prophet needed his Harun. And Allah sent to him. That sending can happen in different ways. We can send something. I can send you a gift. I can send it to you and I can think I'll send it second class. You'll get there. It's guaranteed it's going to get there in the postal service sooner or later. Or I can send it first class. Although there are different categories, special, guaranteed. Allah sends Ali ibn Abi Talib alayhi salam first class right into the house that he calls his own house. This was the beginning of Amir al-Mu'mineen alayhi salam. He comes into being in this glorious way, in this miraculous way. And there is a message in that if we contemplate upon that. Why does Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala send Amir al-Mu'mineen such that he's born in the Holy Kaaba, not anyone else, not his own master Rasulullah, not his own, who raised Ali ibn Abi Talib? None other than Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa alayhi. He raised him. But he wasn't born in the Holy Kaaba. Amir al-Mu'mineen is born in the Holy Kaaba. Something to think about. And not every answer is here to be given from the minbar. Sometimes at-tafakkur fi ad-deen, wat-tafaqquh fi ad-deen sa'a. To have these moments in the day where we think, where we contemplate. It is counted as amongst the fada'il of Ali ibn Abi Talib that he was born inside the Holy Kaaba. Amongst the Shia, there's no dispute about this fact. Amongst the Ahl Sunnah, some might come and say, is it really established? Is there a hadith? Is it sahih? Is it da'if? And so on. But we have one scholar who comes out, because there's been, to counter the fada'il of Amir al-Mu'mineen alayhi salam, when scholars would step out of the woodworks and say, I will write a book on the fada'il of Ali ibn Abi Talib, this was countered with a lot of nasabiyya and adawa, a lot of animosity, a lot of hasad and haqad and hatred and bughd against Amir al-Mu'mineen. And in opposition to those fada'il, we would see fada'il of others being created and fabricated. For example, if Amir al-Mu'mineen, he is Babu Madinat al-Ilm, then someone else is the window and someone else is the roof and somebody else is the mizab. It's sometimes to the point of ridiculousness. When Hassan and Hussein are Sayyida Shababi Ahl al-Jannah, the princes of the youth of Jannah, then there are others who become the Sayyids of the aged and the senior citizens of Jannah. But in Jannah we know from the ahadith that it is only everyone will come, even if you die old, you're 100 years old, you will not be in Jannah being 100 years old, you will be in the prime of your youth in Jannah. Where will be those who are elderly, those who are senile and senior, they will be sent the other way. If they do want to be kings over the senior ones, and that is their direction, well, they will go. But Amir al-Mu'mineen, we see this countering of the fada'il of Amir al-Mu'mineen. But when we look at this particular fadila, that he was born in the holy Kaaba, brothers and sisters, it's not a miracle that someone is born in the holy Kaaba. It is not a miracle. Indeed, it is not a fadila. Because the holy Kaaba wasn't empty. Was it empty or not? What was inside the holy Kaaba? Idols were there. Yeah. But they came and went. Yeah. Those idols were brought into the holy Kaaba through the door that was made by people. Yeah? Through this door. The miracle of the birth of Amir al-Mu'mineen is that Allah invites Fatima bint Asad to come inside the Kaaba. He doesn't open the door that is there. He opens a new door to distinguish the fact that this Amir al-Mu'mineen has nothing to do with the idols that are there, situated within the Kaaba and outside the Kaaba. This is a miracle. When the holy Kaaba opens itself up, a new door for a new age, for a new system of wilayat and imamat. And scholars have mentioned this is not a fadila of Amir al-Mu'mineen for him to be born there. You and I, if we were to be born in the holy Kaaba, it will be a merit, a virtue. For Amir al-Mu'mineen, it is the holy Kaaba that will be singing its own praises. It is a fadila of the holy Kaaba that the likes of Amir al-Mu'mineen has been given birth within the holy Kaaba. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. We need to have a very in-depth. We are called the Shia of whom? Who are we the Shia of? Yes. Say with some pride. Yes. We are the Shia of whom? Ali ibn Abi Talib alayhi salam. Yeah. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. The word Shia itself doesn't mean anything unless we attach Ali to it, or it's there mudmar, it's there in our minds that who are we the Shias of. Because in those days when there was the initial split, when Amir al-Mu'mineen was given a bay'ah, there was this, no doubt before that, his followers were called, Rasulullah himself, he told Amir al-Mu'mineen that, "O Ali, you and your Shias are the ones who are successful." The word Shia and the Shia of Ali was used in the lifetime of Rasulullah. But after that it became popularly used amongst the Muslims when there was this divide between the Shia of Ali and the Shia of Uthman. We see these two groups emerge. And this is where the name Shia became more popularly known. We need to make sure that we are aware of who we are the Shia of. Now, if we take any individual as a leader, and there are people who follow in the recent times, let's say Nelson Mandela. They adore him, they take him as this great ruler and leader of people, or some who really adore and they abide by the teachings of Gandhi. There are those who are in love, infatuated with Winston Churchill, and so on. There are different individuals, alive and dead, who people have taken as their leaders. You ask them, those who are truly committed to that cause, we ask them that, what is your leader's name? They will know the name. They said, what is his background? They will be able to give you a very comprehensive summary of the life of that individual. Those who are truly committed to him. They will speak of his history, they will speak of his family, his background. They speak of his profession, they speak about what he did. They speak about the various merits and virtues. Do we have enough knowledge that when someone says, you are the Shia of Ali, tell me something about Ali? And if there is a book of all the sayings, we have the neo-Nazis, and their Bible is a book called Mein Kampf. They'll be able to quote verbatim from this book. There are those who have attached themselves to the Bible, to the Quran, they have this book there. Inshallah, we are attached to the Quran, but are we attached to the sayings of Amir al-Mu'mineen that are there in a book that we all know as Nahj al-Balagha? Our scholars have undertaken such accomplishments, such feats that we can only imagine without the computer. It's very easy to Google everything nowadays. Now we have ChatGPT and AI. In those days, what Sayyid Sharif al-Radhi did in compiling just the tip of the iceberg when it comes to the balagha of Amir al-Mu'mineen. He wanted to not just showcase the knowledge of Imam Ali, but the balagha, the eloquence of Amir al-Mu'mineen. And he wrote these passages of Amir al-Mu'mineen into Nahj al-Balagha. How much of, are we able to quote Nahj al-Balagha? Do we have knowledge of what is in there? Allah, if we know Nahj al-Balagha, we know Imamat. We know Wilayat. We know, because we see, through the eloquence, the mastery of a language, is that the emotions of the individual. Now, he might have lived 1400 years ago, but when it is written down, when it is recorded, when it is recited, when it is said, and others have written it down, and then years, centuries later, we come and pick up the book and we read it, this is the point of eloquence and balagha. It's not just there just to be nice to the ears to listen to. There is a point to balagha. It's one of the disciplines and sciences that is discussed in the Hawza. Ilm al-fasaha wal-balagha. There is a point to it. To every point of balagha, to every kind of issue within balagha, to every mas'ala of balagha, there is a point, there is a hikmah, there is a wisdom behind it. And the main wisdom behind it is that when we, 1400 years later, we read those words, we feel what Amir al-Mu'mineen is feeling. When he is looking at his army and he is saying that I have an army and they have an army, but their army is obedient to their ruler, to their leader. My army isn't obedient. When we read those passages, those khutbahs, if we truly concentrate and focus on what these words are delivering, sometimes the translation doesn't give justice to what Imam Ali alayhi salam is saying. But if we understand that Arabic, that is why I always insist that we all try and learn Arabic. And Arabic is the language of the Quran, the language of the Ma'sumin alayhimu salatu wassalam. So let us exert an effort, inshallah. I spoke this afternoon about resolutions. Maybe this could be one of the resolutions, that I begin to learn Arabic. Arabic has no madhab. Arabic has no religion. It is a language that we can learn from anywhere. And Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa alihi wasallam has reportedly said that utlubul ilm walau bis-sin. Seek knowledge even if you have to go to China. Or any far off place. We don't need to go anywhere. Everything is on YouTube. So let's learn these tools that can open up so many doorways of knowledge. We open Nahj al-Balagha and we truly feel the pain that Amir al-Mu'mineen feels. We truly feel when someone is betrayed again and again and again. When he witnesses what has happened to his own household, now those same individuals require his help. What does he do? What does he feel? The way he describes his feelings as well. The way he says that he has a thorn in his eye. We can relate to our Imam in this way. And then he is the Imam who ruled, who had governance to some degree, especially in Kufa. From that language, from his expression of his desires, or the expression of his disappointment with his supposed Shias, we can understand what our role should be at the time of the dhuhur of our Imam Ajjalallahu Ta'ala Farajahu Sharif. Allahumma salli ala Muhammadin wa ala Muhammad. This was all meant to be a side point, but let's get back to the wilada of Amir al-Mu'mineen. These things were counted heavily, such that our Imams, they have impressed upon us to keep remembering and doing the dhikr and writing and listening to the fada'il of Amir al-Mu'mineen alayhi salam. Keep remembering it, just so that we have this love for this individual. We have this desire to make him radi with us, content and pleased with us. And not just him, every one of the Imams are in front of us, and especially the Imam of our time. Each one of them, if every one of them is Muhammad, awwaluna Muhammad, wa akhiruna Muhammad, wa awsatuna Muhammad, kulluna Muhammad, sallu ala Muhammad, wa ali Muhammad. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Then does it not become the logical conclusion that every one of them is also Ali? And Ali represents all of them. And this is where it begins. And if we wonder, people ask me the question, how do we recognize the Imam of our time when he comes? How do we know him? How do we recognize him? Because this will be a time of fitna. Many Dajjals will come. Not just one Dajjal, many Dajjals, many imposters and liars will come. Yeah. You're in the south, in the north somewhere, there's this imposter claiming to be Mahdi. In Iraq, there are others have arisen, and different things are happening nowadays. How do we recognize the Imam of our time? We have no book of hadith from him. We don't have much from him except a few tawqi'at, a few letters, few messages. We have the heritage of 13 ma'sumin. Is that not enough to understand who the Imam is? And then we have this compendium of Amir al-Mu'mineen Ali ibn Abi Talib alayhi salam, that we have his language, we have his feelings there, all in a book. We have all of his desires. We have where he lays his importance. What is more important, X or Y? or Y or Z. We look at Nahj al-Balagha, we understand what is most important for the Muslim Ummah or for the Shi'as in particular. So one of the things we ought to do is gain, if we learn Arabic simply for the sake of being able to understand the Quran, the Kalam of Allah and the Kalam of the Ma'soom, then every moment that we spend learning that Arabic is an act of ibadat. And these fada'il, we should learn these fada'il, we should teach our children these fada'il. And narrations say that anyone who recites, does the dhikr of the one fadila from the fada'il of Ali ibn Abi Talib alayhi salam, غَفَرَ اللَّهُ لَهُ مَا تَقَدَّمَ وَمَا تَأَخَّرَ مِن ذُنُوبِهِ. He is forgiven. He's given a clean slate, and even the sins of his future. That requires a bit of explanation, but maybe we have a Q&A later, so maybe I'll leave it to that. And then if not just reciting it, listening to it, writing it. If I write a book in which there is a fadila from the fada'il of Amir al-Mu'mineen, and people continue to read it, as long as people are reading it, it is sadaqah jariyah for me. The angels will be praying for me. That is why it's so important to be not just doing the dhikr of Ali and Ali Muhammad, but also being moved by them. Having an emotional connection. That you are moved, your love grows through just listening to who Ali is. And we are qasir, we'll have many shortcomings in enumerating those fada'il or in explaining those fada'il. Allama Hilli wrote a book called Al-Alfayn. Who's heard of this book? Al-Alfayn. He set out to write 2,000 adillah of the afdaliyya of Amir al-Mu'minin alayhi salam and his fada'il. He got to 1,000 and something and he stopped. He said, this is sufficient. This is in the time of, like Ibn Taymiyyah was there, and one of the Mongol invaders, his grandson converted to Shi'ism, and a lot of things were happening there. Our scholars, what they have preserved for us, it's enormous. What we listen from the mimbar is just a few drops of the ocean of what is there recorded. And what is there recorded is just a few droplets of what is there in reality within the seerah of Amir al-Mu'mineen. There is another narration that tells us that if every tree would become pens, and the oceans, they become ink, and the men and the jinn, they get together to write and to account for every fadila, every virtue, every merit of Amir al-Mu'mineen, the sea will run out. The pens, the trees, the wood will run out. And the men and the jinn, they will become weary and tired, and they can write no more and count no more. But the fada'il of Amir al-Mu'mineen will not end. We need to understand the issue of the fadila and the fada'il, the importance of preserving them within ourselves and in the generations to come. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. In terms of the wilada of Amir al-Mu'mineen in the Holy Kaaba, we see that there was this push in hiding these fadail. And even today we see this. I remember when I went for Hajj in 2019, I found a book in a bookstore in Mecca or Medina about the Abtal, about the warriors of Islam. I saw Khalid ibn al-Walid there. I saw many others there. I don't want to mention their names on a night such as this. But I did not see Ali ibn Abi Talib in that book. Imagine Imagine this, how much hasad they have, really. But when we look at the fadail of the Ahl al-Bayt, in Sahih Muslim, Sahih Bukhari, in Sunan al-Nisa'i, in Tirmidhi, in all of these books of the Ahl al-Sunnah, and we compare them to the fadail of the other Sahaba, and no doubt some of the Sahaba had fadail, we see that there is a demonstrable difference and distinction between the two. There's a contrast, not just in quantity, but also in quality. Not just in the numbers of narrations that people have recorded from the Holy Messenger of Islam sallallahu alayhi wa alih, but in the nature of those fadail. What do we see a statement like La sayfa illa dhul fiqar wa la fata illa Ali, except for Ali? Do we see such a statement being said about anyone else? Do we see a statement like Ana madinatul ilm wa aliyun babuha wa ana madinatul hikmah wa aliyun babuha? Do we see that for anyone else? Do we see the remark of Rasulullah on his departure towards the Roman, the battle towards the Romans? The name has escaped my mind, but Tabuk. And he leaves Amir al-Mu'mineen behind and he says, Anta minni bi manzilati Haruna min Musa. Do you see such comparisons with the prophets? Yeah, we don't. No, Mu'ta was another one. But yes, there were two battles. But this battle, when Amir al-Mu'mineen was left behind, because Rasulullah knew that there was no battle to that will take place there. These were whispers. Some historians have said this was a conspiracy of the munafiqeen in the battle of Tabuk. That a huge army of the Muslims was leaving because people were saying that the Christians, the Romans, were going to attack from the north. Rasulullah leaves, but he leaves Ali ibn Abi Talib behind for the first time. In any battle that the Prophet is embarking on himself, he leaves Amir al-Mu'mineen behind, and he gives this statement. Now before the munafiqeen, they were ready to say, Surah Tawbah, Surah Al-Bara is all about this. This was their conspiracy whereby they would take Rasulullah out of Medina and they would take over Medina. But just simply leaving Amir al-Mu'mineen behind, put all of their plans to bed. And then they actually, some of them who were not going with Rasulullah, they realized that Ali is here now. They rushed after Rasulullah and joined him as well. But there was no battle that happened. And there are certain contextual information that is there that if you go into the details that we understand that even Rasulullah knew that there was not going to be any battle there. And this was the moment, this was the absence of Rasulullah behind which they built Masjid al-Dirar. This is part of their conspiracy. With the Christians and with the Jewish communities there, with the mushrikeen, everyone. But again, there's a lot of hikmah. And every moment, the maqam of Amir al-Mu'mineen alayhi salam is visible for any searcher of the truth. Even if he does not pick up Nahj al-Balagha, even if he does not pick up any book of the seerah of Amir al-Mu'mineen. Why? Because when he picks up, so obviously he's a Muslim, he opens the book of the seerah of Rasulullah. He sees, okay, look at his family. His family is intertwined with the family of Ali. It is Abu Talib who raises him after Abdul Muttalib and his own parents pass away. Abu Talib alayhi salam is raising the Holy Messenger. Fatima bint Asad is raising Rasulullah. And there we see the birth of Ali ibn Abi Talib alayhi salam 30 years after Amul Fil, 13 years before Ba'atha. 23 years before Ba'atha. And Rasulullah then takes Ali into his own care. He does not have a son. Rasulullah does not have a son that survives birth. And he takes Ali as his son. Is there something, who would be the closest to us? Just looking at this fact, immediately before the ba'athah of Rasulullah, we see that, 10 years before ba'athah, 23 years before hijrah. Sorry, getting my numbers confused. Just looking at this, the supposedly pre-Islamic life of the Holy Prophet of Islam, we see Ali a part and parcel of that now. And then in the moment of Ba'athah, when he announces, who are the first to say, Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah and Ashhadu anna Muhammadar Rasulullah, none other than Ali al-Murtada and Khadijat al-Kubra, salamullahi alayhim. There's a narration that tells us that someone is there sitting with Abbas ibn Abd al-Muttalib in the Sahan of the Kaaba in Masjid al-Haram. It wasn't, of course, called Masjid al-Haram at that time, but in what they said, the Fana al-Kaaba, in the Sahan around the Kaaba, he was sitting there and he sees a young man coming forth, and he sees a younger boy, small boy coming behind him, and a lady. And they pray facing the Kaaba in a way that he hasn't seen before. In a unique way, in a way that he hasn't seen before. He asks Abbas ibn Abd al-Muttalib that, what is this happening? It's a new religion. He says, yes, my nephew has started a new religion. So we see that, right at the start, who is there behind Rasulullah and Amir al-Mu'minin? He describes, back to Nahj al-Balagha, he describes how he was like a young camel behind the mother, never leaving that mother. And the way that knowledge was departed day and night from Rasulullah. And this is just the beginning of Ba'athah. And then when Rasulullah is called to invite his close ones, Da'wat dhil ashira, and we know what happens there. He makes it clear that Ali, you are my brother, and you are my wasi, and you are my khalifa min ba'di. And then we go to every occasion, and we see alongside Rasulullah there is a partner in his mission. There is a right-hand man. Even in Mecca, when he was fighting his battles after Hijrah from Medina, and he was facing the Meccans would remember Ali when he was there in the streets of Mecca, of how he would defend Rasulullah. He would be called the one who pulled the ears off of children. Because when the clansmen of Mecca, they said, it's difficult for us to kill the Prophet, he is a Hashimi. Tribal laws were very dominant at that time. Let's get the kids just to throw stones at him. And one of these stones will injure him or kill him. And then no one will be to blame. But when those kids saw Amir al-Mu'mineen, they ran out of town. They saw him, and they dropped the stones. They stopped whatever they're about to do. And this was the Jalal of Ali. This was Sayfi Dhul Fiqar. Yes, he himself, Dhul Fiqar is a symbol. The true sword of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is Amir al-Mu'mineen alayhi salam himself. And why do we always bring about the battles of Imam Ali? Sometimes I hear, I might have said similar things as well, that there's too much focus on the battles of Ali and not on the ibadat of Ali and upon the other things of Ali. All of these are virtues and merits. But it's on the battlefield where Rasulullah, after looking at the ayat of the Quran, after looking at Nahj al-Balagha, I realize it is on the battlefield that we see who has wafa and who is the ghaddar of Rasulullah, who runs and who stands firm. It is for no ordinary reason that Jibreel cries out at the end of the battle of Uhud, La sayfa illa dhul fiqar wa la fata illa Ali. They see a battle. They've seen battles in their lives, these angels. They've lived, Allah knows for how long. They have seen the battles in the past between the Muslims and the kuffar, and amongst the kuffar. They have seen every battle. Yeah. They have seen the battle of Dawood against Jalut. They have seen all of these battles. But they see Ali alone facing an army. One man facing a whole army, and no exaggeration. And sometimes the youngsters might feel these are just exaggerations, mubalaghat and mujamalat, and I don't know. Is this a reality? But if you look at the books of history, we see Rasulullah survives the battle of Uhud. And we see the books of history saying that maximum, some of them say only Ali was there, everyone else, no one else was there. But we see there may be a handful of other people, but they would have emerged. They came back. They were the earliest who came back, let's say. When they saw that the Prophet is alive, Ali is defending him, they were the first ones who came back. Yes, and there are a few names that are there, like Zubayr. But we see that how does the messenger survive when Khalid ibn al-Walid leads his army against Rasul? They want to kill him. They have killed Hamza. Now they want to kill the Prophet. How does he survive? It's a logical question. And the books of history are quite clear. And they try to limit or bring down the role of Amir al-Mu'minin in every battle. In Khaybar, in Uhud, in Badr. In Badr they say 313 men of the highest caliber that the Muslim Ummah do not reach, even the Sahaba do not reach the status of the 313 in Badr. But we read the Quran and we read the passages about the battle of Badr and we realize that all of those things are fairy tales. We see the 313, there were those who did not want to fight, who wanted to flee. They did not want to fight at all. And Allah disparages them in the Quran as well. Time does not permit me to go into details of these battles. But these battles are significant. They teach us. When I was in Umrah recently, I went to the grave of Hazrat Hamza, Salamullah alayh, and next to his grave is a small mount. And people are busy climbing it. For I don't know what reason. This was called Jabal al-Rumat, the mountain of the archers. Those archers, except a handful, they all ran to get the spoils of war. They had this greed that overtook them. And this Jabal should be a reminder of who we shouldn't be. It's not a tourist location. Look at the Jabal al-Rumat, look at the grave of Hamza, and look contrast between the two. See, who was Hamza? And a majlis, and we don't normally have this. I've seen it in Iraq. In the UK, I don't see majalis of the Sayyid al-Shuhada before Sayyid al-Shuhada. Before Karbala, before 61 AH, who was Sayyid al-Shuhada? Who is invoked and who is remembered again and again in Karbala? Hamza and Ja'far al-Tayyar. We should commemorate, we should have majalis for them. And we should do ma'atam for them. We should do latamiyah for them. These are individuals who are invoked again and again. When Sayyidah Zahra Salamullah alayha would mourn, she would mourn in her home, or she would mourn in Jannatul Baqi in Baytul Huzn or Baytul Ahzan, or she would go to the grave of her uncle Hamza and she would mourn upon his grave. So these individuals are very important, these warriors, because they showed us what courage is in any battlefield. We don't have the battlefield of Badr and Uhud in front of us. But we have our own battlefields. We have our own challenges. We have our own enemies. And what they have taught us is to be steadfast upon the path of truth. Especially the youngsters. Times are changing. I grew up here. Well, then I look at the situation now and the challenges facing my children now. I see things have become much worse. And but if we want to be called the Shia of Ali, there's one statement that a scholar has mentioned. For those who live in metropolitan societies, mixed societies, he says, be the ones to color others. Don't be colored by others. Be the ones who show principle, and they stick to those principles. Mawla Ali alayhi salam, he says that do not fear the path of haqq for the very few, for the reason that there are very few that are treading that path. لِقِلَّةِ سَالِكِيهَا. Don't worry that I am alone upon this path, or there's just a handful of us in Brighton who are on the path of Ali ibn Abi Talib alayhi salam, or in the wadi, in the valley of Amir al-Mu'mineen. Just be sure that you are on the path of truth. Karbala teaches us that as well. Ali Akbar, he says, Alasna ala al-haq. Are we not upon the truth? And that's all that counts, brothers and sisters. We are upon the truth. Don't have any inferiority complex. Remove that. We have something that no one else has. And that is the greatest ni'mah that we can pass to the generations to come. If we are to be successful here, if we are to be successful in these countries which did not know Islam just decades ago, if we are to be successful, then the only way of success is being attached to Amir al-Mu'mineen. Being attached, being a Mahdawi, being Husayni, being Hassani, being Alawi, taking from the seerah of the Ma'sumeen. And that line begins, silsila, the chain of Imamat begins, that continues until today, on the 13th of Rajab. And we go back to the 13th of Rajab and we see, again, we get to that, the point I wish to be making, but I get off on a tangent again and again. But in the same way they try to cover up many of the fada'il of Amir al-Mu'mineen, we see that Allah has His plans and He ensures that even by the tongues of the enemies of the Ahl al-Bayt, or the Mukhalifin, we see that they have, for some reason or another, mentioned the Wiladah of Amir al-Mu'mineen in the Holy Kaaba. And we have the likes of Al-Hakim Abu Abdullah Nisapuri, one of the great muhaddithin of the 5th century after Hijrah. He was called Sheikh al-Muhaddithin, Imam al-Muhaddithin, the Imam of his age when it comes to hadith. There was no one like him as a muhaddith in mainstream Ahlul Sunnah. Before him we see scant records and narrations of the birth in the books of Ahlul Sunnah, of course. With the Shias it was very clear, but with them we see just very rare occurrences of the dhikr of the milad of Amir al-Mu'mineen in the Holy Kaaba. But Al-Hakim an-Nisaburi, he says, he shows a bit of bravery to the degree that, the other things that we see in his book Al-Mustadrak ala Sahihain, where certain scholars, Shia scholars, have said that he was in Taqiyya, he was actually a Shia. Ala kulli hal, even the Ahl Sunnah, some of the very staunch Nasabi, they say, no, he was a Shia. But he was Imam al-Muhaddithin fi asrihi. And he writes in his book, قد تواترت الأخبار بأن فاطمة بنت أسد ولدت علي ibn Abi Talib fi جوف الكعبة. Now when it comes to hadith, we have a lot of discussions nowadays on YouTube about this sanad and that sanad and this chain of narrators, and this hadith is sahih and da'if and mutawatir and so on. And a lot of these discussions are quite futile. Ilm al-Rijal and the study of the sanad is just one part of the discussion that needs to be had. And sometimes people look at this and throw the hadith away, just looking at the sanad. No, this isn't the way of the scholars of the fuqaha, of the usuli fuqaha. Let alone the akhbaris, but even the usuli fuqaha don't behave like this. But there is a difference between sahih and mutawatir. What is a sahih narration? Does anyone know? What is the definition? No, not the numbers. It's not about the numbers at all. It could be one hadith and one chain of narrators. No? I mean, no, there's no hadith which is directly from the Prophet. There's always a sanad. And this is a look at the sanad. A sahih narration is that narration that has been narrated, aside from the ma'asum, the non-ma'asum, they are all certified to be thiqah. Yes? Thiqah means trustworthy, reliable individuals. And secondly, they are all imami. They're all Shia and imami and mu'min. We don't think Ithna Ashari because they might have lived in the time of the 7th Imam and the 8th Imam. But they are imami. They believed in all the imams of the past and the present. Now, if every narrator is certified in those two ways, that they are thiqah and they are imami, then that, and there's a connection as well, there's no gap. That narration will become sahih in a technical sense. These are technicalities. Yeah. And then there's Hasan and Muwathaq, and then Da'if, and different levels of Da'if. But let's look at Sahih. Now, if I narrate something from an individual who is immaculate, who is ma'asum, and I narrate it on to you. If I say something, am I ma'asum in my narration of that, of what I have heard from the ma'asum? Am I ma'asum in that? Let's say I am reliable. Let's say I am trustworthy, I am thiqah, I am imami. But does that automatically mean that everything I have said, I have narrated verbatim 100%? Or am I, at the end of the day, a human being that can be forgetful? Is there, even in science, we give a margin of human error? So, in the technical sense, a sahih hadith is hujjah. Yeah? A sahih hadith is hujjah. It is authoritative. If you find a hadith that is sahih sanad, and we have an overall understanding as well, not just about the hadith, but generally speaking, it becomes hujjat for us to act upon. But there is a higher level. This isn't still, it's not qat'i. This hadith is not qat'i. It's not jazmi. Yeah. This is 99%. It's not 100%. What is 100%? There is a level above sahih. Yeah. Tawatur. Yeah. Tawatur is important. Even the Quran is narrated, is it not? But it's narrated through tawatur, meaning hundreds or thousands of people in each generation narrating it on. And the definition of mutawatir is that something is narrated in such numbers that it is impossible for them to all have some kind of conspiracy amongst them to narrate a lie. It has to be the truth. In each generation, there's no bottleneck in the chains of narration. There's no one individual from the ma'asum and then the numbers increase, because that is natural, that happens. Now, in each generation there is a large number of narrators. That is why they say that Ghadir is mutawatir, because it is in front of 120,000 Sahaba. It is narrated by about 100 Sahaba in the books that we have today. So there is no room for any human error. Even that's gone. I don't know if you have heard of the word istiqra'. Like, let's say I'm surveying something. I'm making a survey of how a particular material behaves under heat. I'll take, let's say, iron, yeah? And I'll take iron from Britain. I take iron from the Midlands where I'm from. I take iron from Brighton. I take iron from Pakistan. I take iron from Africa. Or take iron from different places, and I create a rule. of the physicalities of iron, of the physical qualities of iron. And someone will say, have you looked at the iron of Siberia? And I said, no. It's not an all expansive, encompassing survey. It's a partial survey. This is where tawatur comes, if you understand the point. When there are such numbers that it is now impossible for this khabar, for this narrative to be false, to be fake, to be fabricated, then it becomes mutawatir. And mutawatir hadiths are few in number. There are very few mutawatir hadiths that all scholars agree upon to be mutawatir. In the Sunni books, they have their standards. For us, we have our standards. We look at the hadith. There's only a few hadiths that we can call mutawatir. But here, Al-Hakim an-Nisaburi is saying, قَدْ تَوَاتَرَتِ الْأَخْبَارِ. Narrations have reached tawatur. The news that Amir al-Mu'mineen was given birth fi jawf al-Kaaba, inside the holy Kaaba, it is something that is beyond any discussion, beyond any debate. It is something that is attested to by such numbers in each and every generation. But the fact that no one of any high standing before him narrates this, Sahih Muslim is not there, Bukhari is not there, in any of the previous scholars, they haven't mentioned it. Now, is this means for us to reject what Hakim is saying? Or is this, or the other conclusion, and the more logical conclusion when we are students of history? And when we want to look at history, we have to look at it as with the perspective of a historian. And when it comes to history, a lot of politics is there. So when an individual who is lauded by everyone in the mainstream Muslim ummah as Imamul Muhaddithin of his time, nothing to reproach him except if just some people calling him a Shia on the outskirts, fringes of the Muslim ummah. And he says it is mutawatir, and then there's nothing before him. It tells us that not only was Imam Ali definitely born in the holy Kaaba, but also that people tried to cover this up. And it's not difficult to cover these things up. There are many things that have happened to the Ahl al-Bayt alayhimus salam. They have tried to cover up again and again and again. And we see this in the likes of many scholars. And Nisai he had love for the Ahl al-Bayt that he wrote a whole book on just the manaqib of the Ahl al-Bayt, or the manaqib of Amir al-Mu'mineen. And then when he goes to Sham and they see him and they say, write a book on the manaqib of Muawiyah ibn Abi Sufyan. He says, what manqaba, what fadila, what merit does he have? They beat him to a pulp and they kill him. This is what the fada'il of the Ahl al-Bayt and the fada'il of Ali had to face in every age. Such was the hatred that Amir al-Mu'mineen would say that if I was to feed my enemies, my mubghideen, my haters, honey with my own hands, they will not cease hating me. And if I was to break the nose of any of my Shia in one hadith, another hadith, if I were to cut him to pieces, they would not cease loving me. Do we have that love for Amir al-Mu'mineen? Do we have that attachment? That man who had so many fada'il that when he came as an infant to the holy Kaaba in the arms of Fatima bint Asad, he gives the Kaaba fadila. He gives the ruh to the meaning of the holy Kaaba. When Ibrahim alayhi salam leaves his children, رَبَّنَا إِنِّي أَسْكَنْتُ مِنْ ذُرِّيَّتِي بِوَادٍ غَيْرِ ذِي زَرْعٍ. I recited this verse. I'll end on this verse, inshallah. Sorry, I've gone over time. I'm leaving my family in a place with no vegetation. But then he says, رَبَّنَا وَجْعَلْ فَجْعَلْ أَفْئِدَةً مِّنَ النَّاسِ تَهْوِي إِلَيْهِمْ, not إِلَيْهَا. or ilayhi, not to the house of Allah. I'm leaving my dhurriyyat here. They will establish the prayer here. And I want, oh Allah, the minds and the hearts of the people to be inclined. You might think, what's coming next? Towards the holy Kaaba. عند بيتك المحرم. عفوا, I missed that part of the ayah. في باد غير ذي زرع عند بيتك المحرم. To make the hearts of the people inclined towards it, or to be inclined towards them. Ali is our Kaaba. When we go for the tawaf, yes, we do the tawaf of these bricks and mortar, that is the Kaaba, but the spirit of the Kaaba is the wilayah and our iman that we have in our hearts of Amir al-Mu'mineen alayhi salam. And that is why Rasulullah, he said that Ali is like the Kaaba for you. And even when we go for Hajj, Imam al-Baqir alayhi salam would say that the completion of Hajj, inna tamam al-Hajj ziyaratuna. Your Hajj is incomplete until you come and you pay your respects to us. And you renew your allegiance to us. So no doubt we love the holy Kaaba. It is the most sacred place upon this earth. But Allah knows what is the hikmah, the complete hikmah of the birth of Amir al-Mu'mineen in this sacred place. There is a message there. The message of a social message, a political message, a message of Iman and Aqidah, a message that resonates until today, a message that tells us loudly and clearly that no matter how many enemies that the Shia of Ali Muhammad will have, the Shayyu' will spread. It is a nature of Haqq, that the Haqq will remain standing. It is Batil that is Za'il, that is Zahiq, that is Zahib, that is going to go and dissipate. And the Haqq of Ali that we know, yes, the Huquq of Ali, when we look at the Haqq of Ali and the Haqqaniyat of Ali ibn Abi Talib alayhi salam, something to implement in our lives as well. We look at that seerah, and the point of it is that we become inspired by it. We become amongst those who wish not to just love Ali, but to be his beloved as well. Not just for us to say, Ya Ali Madad, Adrikni Ya Ali, but for us to say to Ali that how can I help you? I was speaking to Brother Laith earlier that how do we help the cause of Ali? I mentioned this Jum'ah about these centers that are forts for this ummah, for this nation of the lovers of Ali ibn Abi Talib alayhi salam. But there is a call. Amir al-Mu'mineen made a call to many of the Mu'mineen in Kufa, Basra, and so on to fight against his enemies. And today as well, we need individuals who can step up, exert the effort, give not just their wealth, but also their time and their efforts to ensure that these missions and these projects are successful, and they reverberate and they expand and they become bigger and bigger in the years and generations to come. And no doubt you will have sadaqah jariyah there in that. But this is a spirit of Ali ibn Abi Talib. This is fatuwa. This is being, for the ladies as well as for the men. When Allah tells Jibreel to sound out this sound where the Muslims heard, La fata illa Ali. What is the fatuwa of Ali? Maybe on another day I'll talk about that. وآخر دعوانا أن الحمد لله رب العالمين وصلى الله على محمد وآله الطاهرين. اللهم صل على